And my grandfather was one of the one of the 4 first pilots in Switzerland. And when I grew up, we had pictures in my house that he took in 1909, 1910 of the Swiss glaciers, and they were in our living room. And we spent every year at least 1 or 2 months in the mountains. And I became quite an avid climber. Slowly you start seeing changes. And the changes were very radical for me. And then I would read the science papers and the news, and there was news that the glaciers are shrinking by 5 centimeters a year. And I would go to one place, and I always have my camera. I took pictures, and I was there 1 year, and then I took a picture, and the next year, and I suddenly see this is 100 meters or 50 meters, and this is how this all started. And you know, strange enough, I kept doing this, and nobody listened to me as usual, you know, because I was at the Kyoto summit in 2001 in Kyoto. I spent at that time about 4.5 months in Japan. But while I had my project, I just kept going and going, and went by helicopter climbing.
Is that your way to raise awareness towards climate change?
I don't think it's my duty to raise awareness, because I think if you don't know what's going on, you're really, really stupid. And I think, you know, I talked in Switzerland about this project to many people, and, you know, I sent invitations, and the least response I got here in Switzerland.
Really?
Yeah. So, and the most response I get, you know, from the US, I get because of what's happening with Trump. I get from Asia, I get from you know, from places, from Italy, from France. But Swiss, you know, maybe also because I'm Swiss, this has not been a comfortable journey at all, and it's been financially very, very, very difficult, because you know, we had a little bit of help from one side, and then to get these shows going, they're enormous. There's really nobody who pays for these things. It's the artists, mostly themselves, or pieces that they sell. So this has been like a very, arduous journey. And now I think the journey becomes more and more pleasurable, in a way, because we have really a series of the very best museums in the world that all are participating. I think if we have more people like Al Gore, more people like Elon Musk, more people like Melinda Gates, you know, and more artists like Ai Weiwei or Marina Abramovic, or I'm trying now to give a message, but I think contemporary art, the news medias are so often reduced to censorship in certain countries, and you know, I've been to many war zones, and we know what, you know more than anyone else how difficult it is to report. So I think the new museum, and I think contemporary art today, is really, really a great form for us to show what is happening.
You mentioned that you're going to have
a major land art installation.
So tell us about that.
The next installation next year will be the Mojave Desert. It's a land art installation of about 38 miles. And then I have this balloon that I don't want to talk too much about, that's going to go into space to record data. And that basically is the next step of light. It's called Into the Light. And basically it shows the different aspects of global warming, you know. People always say everything is bad, everything is... I said, no. We are right now at one of the most interesting points, because if you look positive, if you keep positive. If you keep straight, people can change the world, from architects to industrialists to bankers to scientists. We have huge progress in robotics, orthopedic surgery, brain surgery, you name it, is making incredible progress.
But still, before you just said that actually no one listens to you, but so you try to do it through.
I didn't say that at all. That's that in Switzerland maybe people don't listen, but that's nothing to do with me. I think Switzerland is one of the most comfortable countries. Now I live in Switzerland, thank God, and I love it. But when you're here, there is still miscontent among people. You know, there's a certain overcomfort here, and people complain about many things here. But I think it's one of the only countries we really have so little to complain about. I come here. I was in Parma for 4 months last year, and you know, there are hundreds and thousands of migrants that are working in the fields. It's absolutely fantastic, but we don't have that influx. We have certain problems, but I think all in all, it's paradise to live here. So I'm not saying. I just say it's harder to talk about certain things here than in other countries where people, they feel it on their own skin. And in America, we feel it on our own skin. We feel that our neighbors are being deported. We feel that.
Yeah, so you just said you came back to Switzerland after such a long time living in LA, in Paris, in New York. Tell us, why did you come back?
Well, the real reason why I came back is, I mean, there are 3 or 4 aspects. What is happening in America right now is just mind-boggling. After the Trump election, I don't know how many laws have been changed by executive order. I don't think any president has used executive power more than Donald Trump in the first 90 days of being in office. If it was Hillary Clinton, you can say whatever you want about her, but we would have known at least what we are dealing with. And we had also, you know, we have Bernie Sanders, whether you like him or not, but he's a true Democrat. You can say whatever you want. So,
have you taken his picture? I know that you took the picture of Hillary Clinton.
I traveled on Air Force One with the Clintons twice. And I got to know them, you know, and they're real politicians, but they are really hardworking people. You can say whatever you want, you know, nobody's perfect, but it was really a fantastic experience. And you know, I met Bill Cowan at the time, the Minister of Defense, and it was the last 8 years of Obama gave us so much hope in America. We never expected to go back. We were going to build in Malibu, and we would say, okay, this is it. And then there's so much negativity every day, and you don't want to just be surrounded with that. And then we had these big shows here, and then we have the other projects in Asia, and I think the timing to come here is fantastic, and I always love Switzerland. I love the mountains here.
You've once said, and I really like the quote, you said somehow to become a photographer or artist, you shouldn't try to please anyone, and you should not compromise on anything, and you should take risk, which for me, those aren't Swiss values at all.
Not Swiss?
No.
Well, you know, I met a man in 1979. I worked at the time at the BOURGEOIS. You know, I was an art restorer, and we were restoring the Yves Klein retrospective. And I was at the dinner with Karl Lagerfeld, and I shot, as you know, the first pictures for Chloe. And these pictures ended up at French Row. And there was a man at French Row called Alexander Lieberman. And Alexander Lieberman, if you Google him, he was the grey eminence of all the Vogue and Vanity Fairs. And a few weeks later, I had a Concorde ticket to go to New York. I was standing in front of Alexander Lieberman. And he took me to 21 for lunch, and he said, Comte, I tell you one thing, I really like you. I know you risk, and just risk, risk, risk. Never stop risking. And you know, this resonates. And you know, Alex is gone. I almost have tears in my eyes. He's gone. And you know, I was just at the Armani in Tokyo in the library, and I looked out the window, and there's a gigantic Alexander Lieberman sculpture looking out the window. So Alex is everywhere. I had the Concorde ticket to go to Europe, and I met Franca Sozzani. And I met Franca,
editor-in-chief,
this girl with the long gold hair, and she was like this. Hi, Alex sent you. Okay, you want to work with me? Okay, I'll call you. The meeting lasted 2 minutes. Bye. I got back to New York. The next morning, the phone rang.
No.
Hey, it's Franca.
No.
I want you to shoot Miles Davis for me tomorrow or after tomorrow. And I said, I don't know Miles Davis. I don't know where to find him. And she said, do you want Annie Leibovitz to shoot it? She's shooting him tomorrow. So I knew where Miles Davis was living, at the Essex House, because I'm a big jazz freak. I always went to the Village Vanguard or to the Blue Note to listen to him. So I knocked on the door of the Essex House, and Miles opened the door and I said, Miles, you don't know who I am, but I really, really am in trouble. I promised that I take your picture. You know, it's a big part of my career. I've been going to so many. She said, tomorrow afternoon, 5 o'clock. I didn't call Franca back. I shot the pictures, and that was the beginning of a 36-year relationship until last November, 3 weeks before she passed away. And we share a house. You know, we have our house in Morocco that's built together, and it's a very large. It's in the Medina, and it's a very beautiful story. She said, you're the only person that I could share a house with, because I know we have exactly the same taste. So we have been. So when Franca passed away, so you know, that was another
cut.
But we worked together, and we were friends for 36 years, and 36 years really. If you go through all the Vogues, maybe I did 500-600 stories for Vogue, for Italian Vogue altogether.
So would you say that she was kind of a mentor, a door opener?
She was like a muse, you know. You know, when I was with Franca the last day, she said, okay, and in January we're going to do couture, then we go to Marrakesh, we make a big party, and you're standing in the door, and I knew that was not going to happen, but it was always going forward. So it's a different way of thinking. So I worked with Jeff Koons at the beginning of the career. I worked with Miss Stabel, Miss Clemente, with Keith, and all these artists participated. We sold these paintings, and we were able to build the orthopedic center in Kabul. So it's a means to, at that time, it was a means to generate awareness. You know, I met, as you know, I met Bin Laden in Afghanistan. I spent several days.
How was that?
It was long before anybody knew who Bin Laden was. And we met in the area of Kandahar, outside of, you know, which is a very far distance from Kabul. And basically one of his men stepped onto a landmine, and Alberto Cairo, at that time, who ran the ICRC, was a doctor there, we had to do an amputation. And so this is basically, and you know, that's how we met. And basically, you know, he at the time was totally unknown.
What kind of person?
Very warm, I know the Bin Laden family from Geneva. They're actually, the Bin Laden, the mother and the father and the brothers, they all mostly live in Geneva. They're very, very generous people. He was definitely radicalized, but don't forget, you know, just like Saddam, you know, Bin Laden was an American product. Bin Laden basically overthrew he was there when the Russians occupied Afghanistan, and he was the first one, you know, all financed by the Americans to make a change. So Bin Laden, you know, the Bin Laden story is a story that can go on forever. It is hard to understand how this happens, you know.
Especially maybe because you met him and you saw who he was?
But, you know, I met Idi Amin Dada, I met Fidel, I met Bokassa, I met, all these, a lot of these men that are, or these monsters, and that really are, they have an incredible charisma over people, and that's why people are following them. And I mean, the prime example that lasted forever was Fidel. And Bin Laden, the way we met him, I was there on my birthday in 1997, on the 19th of February, and he made a meal, and he was really charismatic man, you know, very quiet, very extremely soft-spoken, like we know him from the videos. And you would never, ever put that together, that this could actually happen, you know. Very different than the house of Saddam. Saddam, from the beginning, almost from the beginning, you knew how his actions were. And, you know, I was in both Iraq wars. I never met Saddam, but I met Uday and Qasai. I met the sons.
There you felt the difference. Huh?
Yeah, it's very different, because in Iraq you really knew, when I was in the hotel room and I put my toothpaste in my bag, and I knew exactly at night that every single day people went through my stuff.
So you had all those encounters with bad men, but you have had also a lot of encounters. I have the
greatest encounters in the world.
Tell us your favorite encounter.
Oh my God,
It's impossible.
My favorite is Louise Bourgeois.
Why her? I mean, French
Because you look at the picture, and the picture has 1,000 words. I did a collaboration with her at the Palais de Tokyo, you know, about 12 years ago. It's the first time I had a collaboration with an artist like this. But I went to a studio, and she was like a little girl, and she was dancing around, and then she wore a Comme des Garçons coat and wrapped with a string, and all her spiders were there. And
she had one of her spiders here in Zurich, too.
I know. And she was just extraordinary. And then she said, "Are you going to make a platinum print for me?" And I said, "Why you ask me that?" And she dropped her coat, and her breast came out, and she went and she took this brown powder all over her, and then she had a glow, and he says, "If you take a picture of me now, you're going to make the most beautiful platinum print for me, because it's going to look very different." It just showed her beauty.
You never liked being called a star photographer?
I never intended to do this. I was an art restorer. I worked with Yves Klein, I worked with Warhol, I worked for Bruno Bischofberger in the early years, and Thomas was a very, I never expected. The last thing I expected was to become a fashion photographer. That's then the very last thing that I thought that would happen to me. And then I met Carl, and that was it.
Well, still, I mean, you're obviously your celebrity photography is iconic.
Yeah.
If I think of the Sylvester Stallone picture.
Oh yeah, but that's a great story, by the way. You know?
Yeah, tell us. You've become friends.
Yeah, and well, friends. I know him very well. But anyway, Vanity Fair before they asked Annie at the time, they wanted me to take a picture of Stallone. I didn't even know it was a cover story. And I said, no, I'm not in that. I don't like his films. So the story came out, and then 6 months later, I got a phone call again. They said, I'll be doing another, Stallone is doing Rambo now. It was first, it was Rambo, then it was, I don't know. You know, he's doing the tunnel. The tunnel. And no, another one. I said no. So I'm in the Ritz, I shoot the collections, and there's a knock on the door. And it's Sly.
No.
I swear to God, I die. And he
said, no, I'm going to close the door.
No. And it's Sly. And he said, man, that girl that you're shooting, I'm dating her right now. Will you take my picture now? Because I know you turn me down every single time. And there was a bouquet of flowers with roses on my mantle. And I said, okay, Sly, take your shirt off, stand against the wall. I put 2 rose petals on his eye. Over his eye, took the picture in 3 minutes. And that was it.
That was then the cover?
No, that became a very, probably one of his most famous pictures.
Yeah.
And when he saw this picture, I said, man, this is just... And then, you know, every time I see him, he's actually a really nice guy, very smart.
So you really become a universal artist.
Starting opera.
An opera?
An opera in the Opera Farnese in Parma. It's like the Pantheon. It's the biggest, one of the oldest opera houses in the world. And I'm doing Don Giovanni with Iggy Pop.
With Iggy Pop?
Yes.
With one of the iconic people you've also photographed.
Yeah. And I do this basically to bring the young crowd into the opera. And it will be live streamed. So this opera is going to be...
For everyone. Well, Michel Comte, thank you very much for taking your time.